Hello and welcome to the F2 show. I'm your host, Fraser Ford. I'm joined today by Inside F2 writer Lawrence Griffin, Inside F2 editor Hannah Prufrock, and GP Grandstand's Jim Kimberley. Guys, let's get straight into it. The new calendar's obviously been announced for the 2022 Formula 2 season. 14 rounds, 28 races spread across 9 months. Obviously back to 2 races per weekend as well. Obviously the calendar's been a hot topic of conversation so far on the podcast this season for people that have been listening all season long. What are your initial thoughts on the calendar, Jim?
It's the news that we wanted, isn't it? It's not the news that's unexpected, but it's the news that we wanted. Initial thoughts were just straight to, yes, back to normal. We've got to remember there was some extenuating circumstances which impacted that as well as did the rest of the world. But I think it was good that they gave it a go. It just didn't work. And giving things a go, like we've seen in Formula One with the sprint races, if they don't work, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But I'm happy that we found out it didn't work. And now I don't think there'll be any clamour to have a 3 races per weekend setup ever again. So I'm delighted that we're going to be back to, essentially a few races every month, which is how things should be.
Yeah, I think that was the main issue really last season, or this season even, with the calendar, was obviously the gaps, and we're in the middle of one now, obviously 2 months between Sochi and Jeddah, which is the next round. Obviously much fewer gaps in the new calendar for 2022, Hannah. It's good, right? It's good news.
I'd certainly say so. Considering what we've had this time around, it feels like F2 and the FA and all the stakeholders have really kind of listened to the fans in terms of, right, let's get a greater variety of tracks. Let's get some pretty good flyways, I'd say. Especially, I kind of wish they were heading to the US. I feel like that's probably my big sticking point. But overall, they've got a really good balance of the tracks, and that momentum, I think, as Jim rightly mentioned, is there's no kind of impetus, and it just feels very stop-starting to me as a fan. It was a frustrating thing to see, and especially now when looking at the drivers market, the end of the F2 season normally should coincide with the big moves in the drivers market, and unfortunately it's looking like the whole F2 grid's been left behind this time around. So I'm excited to see the calendar. I'm excited to see the races that come up, maybe a couple of things that are tweaked, but I'm so glad we're back to 2 weekends and that we're finally going to have Zandvoort on the calendar.
Yeah, we'll talk about the races in particular in a bit, but it's really exciting to see Zandvoort and Imola to come to the calendar. I think that's going to be absolutely epic next season. Hannah's just alluded to it, Lawrence. Obviously, the fact that drivers maybe this season didn't quite get the chance to prove themselves enough before the likes of Belgium, Italy, where we do usually get the Formula One driver market all falling into place. Formula 2 had only had 4 rounds, which is hardly enough time for the guys to prove themselves and really put themselves in with a shot. Is the fact that obviously next season we're going to have a lot more rounds before the Formula One grid starts to take place. Is that a good thing as well?
Absolutely. I think it gives those team bosses in Formula One more time to get a better picture of the drivers, especially when you consider that with the 3 races per weekend format that we've had this season, if you have an issue in the first sprint race, that takes you out of the second sprint race in effect. And then if your qualifying hasn't been ideal, that's your whole weekend down the drain effectively. So with that happening to drivers on some weekends, you only have a few weekends to prove yourself. So I think that will really give the drivers an opportunity, not just for the team bosses, but also for their sponsors and also for the teams who are working with them, a chance to properly get going in the season and to stay properly warmed up throughout and show themselves off to F1, to the teams there and to the fans.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I think the whole thing, combined is really good news. Obviously, the fact that we've got 2 races again on a weekend, and it's all looking good for next season, isn't it? And obviously, we're going back to the likes of Barcelona, Austria, Hungary, Spa, just to name a few rounds. Are we excited to see those tracks back on the calendar, Jim?
Yeah, it's not as street heavy as it's going to be this year, is it? Which is good. I'm hoping that Jeddah, which we'll find out pretty soon, is actually not as bad as I've got in my head that it might be from some of the stuff that we've seen. But if it's not, then it's looking like a really, really good calendar. I'm just looking through it now, and you've got the whole European middle part of it. We spoke just in the green room before about the gap to Abu Dhabi, and I understand the desire to have a finale at Abu Dhabi, the fireworks and the way that they put on the show. But yeah, could we do without that big gap, September to November? probably. It'll make it very exciting that we get that finale, so there'll be a big build up to it. But like we've seen this year, as I spoke about earlier, those gaps aren't really conducive to having excitement building up. It's very stop-start. It's actually, I need to catch up on Extreme E at the moment, and I've been all excited for Extreme E all year before it started, and then they've had that exact same problem. It's like, here's a couple of months without, and I'm like, it's just lost a bit of momentum. But I'm still excited that they get to go to Abu Dhabi. It's nice to have the night race and everything there. That's the only one I think that I would tinker and maybe put another track somewhere else to make it the 14 rounds. Well, 14, that's a lot of races. Yeah, that's the only one I'd change. For the rest of them, I think they've really got solid setup. If we assume that Jeddah is going to be good.
Yeah, do you think they could have finished the season at Sochi? Is there another Formula One venue, for example, that you would have liked to, finish the Formula 2 season at instead of Abu Dhabi to make the season a little bit more compressed, and you don't have that 2-month wait at the end of the season?
Let's just look for the Formula One calendar. What would you have after Sochi? Singapore, Japan, Circuit of the Americas. So there's your answer right there. That would be a grandstand finale. I'd have it at COTA, maybe Mexico City, that you'd have the flyaway, but you'd have it 1 month later. So you'd have a solid, every single month we've got a race, which is how I'd like it to be. So yeah, I'd go for that.
Anna, Lawrence, where would you like to see the season finish? Are you happy with it finishing at Abu Dhabi, or would you like to see it finish somewhere else?
I'm with Jim. I'd love to see it finish in America. After seeing the hype this weekend, could you imagine, especially painting them as the F1 stars of the future, how much the American fans could get around it? And if possibly, for example, we could have an American driver on the F2 grid next year with Logan Sargent, I think it'd have gone down incredibly well. And I think it would have been, they have that hype around it that I think the season finale needs. The only reason I can see Abu Dhabi being in the calendar isn't necessarily the fireworks style ending. It's the post-season test, the young drivers test in Abu Dhabi. They know a sizable amount of the F2 grid will already be in Abu Dhabi for that weekend anyway. Why not, for cost-saving measures, stick the final there? It's a bit frustrating because I do think that gap is just, I know it's only a month and it feels weird to be griping about a month compared to, well, no, 2 months, griping after we've had, 8 weeks in places, but it does take a little bit of that bounce out of it. But I'd say stick it in America, give it that big show. And they can't say that they've not taken junior formulas there, because W Series has had pretty much an incredible season finale this weekend there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Although it would make a lot of sense to have the final race with that young driver test. I think that grandstand finish at the Circuit of the Americas would be brilliant. And just look at the number of fans we had this weekend for the Formula One and for the W Series, up to 400,000, I think, somewhere between 380 and 400,000. And that really proves how well Formula One is doing moving into the American market. So if F2 can capitalize on that and bring in even more fans and get them more involved into, other series of motorsport, I think that's a really fantastic opportunity for the sport and for the series, particularly. So yeah, I think I'm in agreement with the other two on that one.
Yeah, obviously all in agreement at COTA then. Could it have been that we got rid of a European race and had COTA in between Sochi and Abu Dhabi and potentially made it a month wait and then a month wait just to break up the 2 months? Would you have liked to have seen a European race got rid of or not? Hannah, we'll come to you for that one. Can
we just get rid of Sochi and put America in instead? Because if you think is we're going to have Monza in September, Sochi at the end, Sochi's in end of September. I just stuck the US in October. You've had month gaps in between, because to me, of the 2 rounds on the calendar, I don't like a Barcelona and Sochi. And I think of the two, Sochi doesn't really bring a lot to the F2 calendar, but I think COTA would be a much better fit.
I think COTA would be brilliant with Formula 2 cars there.
I think so. I was just looking down the list of the races of the calendar for next season. I want to keep that one. I want to keep that one. I want to keep that one. I think don't take any away from me, please. All the way down to Barcelona with maybe a question mark over it, and all the way down to Sochi. I think that would be a very good swap with Monza running in early September as well. I think that would be a great place in the calendar if you also want to finish it in Abu Dhabi.
Robert Schwartzman would like to know your location.
He would if he's on the Formula 2 grid next year. We'll wait and see about that one. Okay, we're all in agreement about excited to be back at some of the venues that we haven't been at this season. What about the venues that we're going to see for the first time next season? Obviously, we're going to see Imola for the first time. I'm going to see Zandvoort as well, Lawrence. Those two races are going to be absolutely brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I think Zandvoort with the extreme banking you see there, adding in a whole other element to see how Formula 2 cars go around there without the sort of the supple suspension of a Formula 1 car, how they handle that turn. Bear in mind, the drivers will have a single practice session to try to figure out the best lines around this track. They'll still be learning all the way through into the sprint race and probably only at their very best by the end of the weekend. So I think that'll be really exciting, and that will be, we talk about this series as a test for the junior drivers to really show their talent, who can get to grips with that track the first. And the same with Imola as well. It's quite an old-fashioned circuit in places with gravel in the last sector, very narrow curbs and very little margin for error in a lot of places. So I think that will really put all these drivers to the test really effectively. And I can't wait to see them driving around there, especially as, circuits like Imola are so historically important. I think that as a new venture for Formula 2 is really exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome, and I think as well, Richard Verschoor, Bent Viscouw, they're going to be desperate to be on the grid next season as well, aren't they? Because to race at Zandvoort in front of their home crowd is, when we saw what it was like with Max Verstappen this year. So if those guys are on the grid next season, I'm sure they'll be absolutely buzzing for it. Let's talk about the new point system as well. Then that obviously comes with the calendar, Hannah. All positive again?
Yeah, I think overall with the point system, it's a fair change given the fact that we're obviously having less races per weekend. I think overall reducing the amount of points a pole and fastest lap is a fair compromise. And I think overall having that hopefully should make closer championship battles. If you say look at Formula 3 this season, Hauger pretty much ran away with it for most of the year. Whereas this time we do seem to be having quite a close fight between Zhou and Piastri at the top, but not really much elsewhere. With more rounds and less points available per round, hopefully we'll be having a multiple car fight heading into the final round like we did last year. Because what was it? I'm trying to think how many drivers was it? Was it 5 that were still in contention by the final round in Abu Dhabi? It was the final 2 weekends.
It was five, and then I think for the final race it was down to the final 2. But I think it's 5 going in, wasn't it?
Yeah, and just having that again, because I think for me it just adds that excitement of having those make fights and it being such a you must perform at every race. Whereas this time around, I feel like just with the amount of points available, it's just been a bit too spread about.
Jim, looking forward to the new point system in place, 2 points, pole position, happy with that?
Yeah, I agree with it. I don't know if looking forward is the right word. I think it's a better format. It's the same points for everybody. If you're Piastri and you're winning the sprint race, you're winning the feature race or whatever, then that's the same that if Ticktum was to do that. It's not like there's an advantageous thing for it, but I do think nerfing the sprint race a little bit is the right thing to do. If you have this bit of a lottery, isn't it? If you get pole position, that's justified. You're going to hopefully, if you have a tidy race, score big significant points on Sunday. But if you have a rough qualifying and you do poorly and you qualify in 8th and then you get 15 points the next day for the privilege of that doesn't seem right. So I think having that cut down is the right thing to do. And also the good thing for next year, by virtue of how the season's going to be, is there's just going to be way fewer sprint races than we've got this year. So in essence, as it stands, and I know you'd start from 8th place if you win sprint race 1 currently, in essence, there are more points available for the reverse grid sprint races currently, which just doesn't seem right. It should be, I'm saying, if you have 15 points, you get 30. And I do think having the feature race be the feature race is the one you really need to win, because that's where the big points are given out. And you had a tough qualifying. That sucks. You qualified in 6th, and now you're going to you got podium almost guaranteed in the reverse grid race. Those are things which I like having it. The sprint races are ace to watch, but having the points be reassessed and put to what they are going to be for next year, the right thing to do.
Guys, we'll wrap up a little bit then. Before we do that, what round are you most looking forward to next season? Hannah, we'll come to you first.
Am I allowed to be biased and say Silverstone because I'm British?
Absolutely, yeah. Always provides brilliant racing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. Although, to be fair, if I'm going to go for a non-biased one, I'll go for Belgium and Spa because I really missed off the F2 calendar this season.
Definitely was a big miss. Jim, the round that you're most excited for next season?
I'm just looking through it now, actually. It's difficult to say. Bahrain was ace this time round, but Zandvoort will be really good. Watched the Formula 3 there and the W Series there. It was some good racing on those junior Formula, but probably Monza. Monza's always produces, doesn't it? So still, I'm glad it's on the calendar, and yeah, I'm going to go with Monza.
Lawrence?
Yeah, those are the two I was thinking, Spa and Monza, those historic tracks, always entertaining racing. Even something like the return of a Budapest as a different challenge, perhaps slightly less action there with it being so tight, but I think that'll be good as well. So I'm quite looking forward to Budapest, and as we've seen this season in Formula One with wet weather, any number of these tracks that we're looking at could suddenly be transformed. What if we had wet weather in Zandvoort? How on earth do you manage that as a driver? New track, new conditions. Is it the normal karting line that becomes the wet line? Where on earth do you go? Especially the likes of turn 3, I think it is, the banked turn. So yeah, a few there. I haven't really answered the question properly.
No, I think you got it. I just want to go in for a special shout out to the Red Bull Ring as well. I was just looking through the calendar and I forgot we didn't go there this year after having the season opener. It's one of my favourite tracks for any series. So having Formula 2 back there for 2022 is going to be really, really good. It's just the track that's so quick and has so many opportunities to overtake. You've essentially got in Formula 2 as well, maybe turn 1, but you've essentially got that turn 3, which is really turn 2, and then the downhill. It's just such a good track. And if you don't do it, you've got about a 30-second wait to have another go. So yeah, I love the Red Bull Ring. So glad to have that back.
You're all right. I remember Artem Markelov pulling off a triple overtaking on turn 3 in Austria, and yeah, moves like that. Yeah, we'll definitely look forward to Austria next season, won't we? Okay, that's what we think. What do you guys think at home? Let us know what you do think in the comments section. Let us know if you're excited for the calendar, if you think it's a good calendar, better than this season, or maybe you think it's worse than this season. Maybe disagree with us. Let us know what you think. Whilst you're there, make sure you subscribe to the channel for exclusive interviews, track guides, and more of the F2 show. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.